Seoul, Sydney, Atlanta, and Athens. What do they all have in common? They're all recent hosts of the Olympics. And now you can add Beijing to that list. The 08 Games kicked off in the Chinese capital this month, and they are the focus of our final summer program. As John Voss explains, the host country has a lot invested in this event.
Wang Zhenyao is older than Communist China. Now 72, he saw Chairman Mao rise to power, live through the brutality of the Cultural Revolution, survive famines. And now, along with so many of his generation, he believes China is on the eve of taking its place on the world stage. Foreigners once called China the sick man of Asia, he says. This is history and will never return. The Chinese nation is invincible. And to prove that, China is determined to stage the most lavish Olympics the world has ever seen. A dream that began a century ago, say historians like Susan Brownell.
If we search the historical records, the first time that we can find in print a call for China to host the Olympic Games is about 1907, 1908. It's because that would be a symbol that China had emerged on the world stage.
The Chinese are taught before Mao and the communists, their country was weak. For hundreds of years, militarily inferior, forced to sign unfair treaties, concede land to imperialist countries like Britain and France. And only when China was strong would that humiliation end. China may not be a superpower just yet, but it sure wants to look like one. Beijing has undergone an extreme makeover, a 7-year building frenzy with an Olympic crescendo. A far cry from the drab, impoverished capital of the recent past. Days which Mr. Wang remembers well and will never return, he says, after the Olympics. Our economy will grow, our people will be happier, he says. But what about all that international prestige?
If the Chinese, either people or the Chinese government, think that this is going to radically change their place in the world, they're mistaken.
David Woloshinsky, an Olympic historian, points to the protests which erupted during the torch relay earlier this year over issues like human rights in Tibet. Demonstrators were quickly labelled anti-China by the communist government.
The main purpose of hosting the Olympics for the Communist Party is to show the Chinese people that the world acknowledges the Communist Party as the legitimate leaders of China.
Like almost everyone else here, Mr. Wang won't be going to the Games. Instead, he spent his days etching Olympic symbols on eggs as a tribute to the Games. It seems odd, but they fill the small 2-room apartment where he's lived for 40 years. This is just my small contribution, he told me. China may be ready to dazzle the world, but it seems some old habits die hard. During our entire interview with Mr. Wang, a Communist Party official was nearby, carefully recording everything he said. John Voss, CNN Beijing.
All right, now we're shifting gears a bit. There's something in the air surrounding these games.